I was talking to Namrata when we were having a cup of tea. Having this type of an audience on a Friday morning speaks a lot about the interest in the subject that all of you have. And I thank once again all of you, including the coordinators over here, for giving me this opportunity to present my thoughts on these two subjects, which are currently, I would say, the most hotly debated topics in the world of Indian transfer pricing. Friends, if I have to talk about both these topics, not even a day is enough for each of them. But I try to compress them and present, as many views and thoughts as possible in next 1.5 hours. And the urge remains the same what I said last time. Please feel free to share, discuss your thoughts, because I also want to learn something when I get out of that door. So on that note, let me just start on this topic. We are talking about this concept of marketing intangible, which is the first topic that I'm going to cover. So before I start, any thoughts on what is the issue of marketing intangible all about? What does this speak? Any prior thoughts? We all of us have heard so many things. Yeah, please.
Promoting the brand of some product.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. So you rightly said that it is somewhere promoting the brand of the foreign company that we are talking about. But why is it relevant? What is happening? What is the whole issue all about? So let's go back into the history, in time. The concept really, and the adjustment which the tax authorities and the transfer pricing authorities are trying to make is very simple. They are saying that the advertisement and marketing expenses which are being incurred by an Indian company is benefiting the foreign company. So it's actually a service which Indian company is providing to the foreign company. So India should get the reimbursement of that expenditure. And top of it, India should also get a markup for the services provided. This is the whole issue. If I have to summarize it for all of you, this is the issue. Sounds very simple. But then how do you identify what is the spend that you have done, which is building the brand of the parent company? And there is this term called bright line. So bright line is a tool which is being used by the Indian tax authorities to say that, to determine out of the total EMP spend which is done by the Indian company, how much of that is a non-routine expenditure which is actually building the brand of the foreign company. So let me give you an example. If the total ad spend of Indian company is 100, they are applying this bright line to say that 50 out of this is an expenditure which you have done, which has resulted in a brand building for the foreign company. And that's 50 rupees should be reimbursed by the foreign company along with a markup of X%. Generally it's in the range of 12 to 13%. What is this bright line all about? The bright line is nothing but they are saying that the ratio of marketing spend to sales is the ratio which is called as bright line. That is what the tax authorities have been trying to use as a tool to see that what is the marketing spend which is benefiting India and what is the marketing spend which is benefiting the overseas company. Let's step back in history again, and I would like to just put across a thought on what is the genesis of this entire concept of marketing intangible and where did it all came about from. It started with the case of DHL, but it gained prominence in case of Glaxo. So the facts were that Glaxo US was acting as a low risk distributor. I think all of you are familiar with the concept of a low risk distributor. So Glaxo US was acting as a low risk distributor for Glaxo UK, and Glaxo UK came out with a blockbuster product, an anti-ulcer product, which was being marketed by US. That product was so phenomenal that in a year's time, the number of people and the revenue grew significantly. So from about 3 people in year 1, they grew to some 1,000 people in US because of the marketing which was being done by the US guys. So the US IRS came back and said that, look, what is happening is, despite having done so much of marketing and so much of efforts by the US company, we are still getting a routine return. We are getting a 3% or 4% return. We are not getting any additional benefit from the incremental sales that has happened. So we should get something. So then the test was that how do we identify what is that extra benefit that has resulted from the marketing spend which is done by the US company. That is where this Brightline was applied. So Brightline said that whatever AMP you are using, the ad and marketing spend as a percentage of your sales vis-a-vis your comparables, that excess is something which we will consider as a non-routine or a non-routine expenditure, and that will be something which the overseas entity has to reimburse me along with the markup, because that's the brand building I have done. So this concept essentially, if you ask me, this Brightline concept is essentially to be applied in case of a distributor, and we'll get into this why a distributor, etc. Essentially this has to be applied in case of a distributor, and to determine what should be the additional return which a distributor is supposed to get. But in the Indian context, unfortunately, and we'll just talk about some of more cases in a few minutes, you might have heard about this LG case. LG was an entrepreneur or manufacturer or licensed manufacturer. Even in LG's case, this has been applied. So the way it stands as of today, Indian tax authorities are applying this Brightline test and this AMP adjustment to everyone, whether you are a distributor, whether you are a manufacturer, irrespective of that. And I have my own thoughts. We'll talk about it in a minute. But any thoughts on this concept? If anyone is here, I would like to move ahead. I'm sorry? Yeah. So Maruti Suzuki was the first one. Maruti Suzuki was the first one. We'll talk about Maruti Suzuki as well briefly. It started with Maruti Suzuki in India, but what is the guiding factor as of now? It's the LG decision, the special bench decision in case of LG. That is the one which is driving the AMP adjustment across India. If you pause and look at what is the definition and where is this power to do this AMP coming under the Indian Act, Indian Income Tax Act, you have to look at this definition of Section 92, the expanded definition of Section 92, which is talking about that if you look at 92, the clause B, it says international transaction also means shall include purchase, sale, transfer, lease or use of intangible property. And the intangible property has been defined widely. It has been said that intangible property includes marketing related intangibles such as trademarks, trade names, brand names, logos. Now, this is where the tax authorities are saying that if you are using an overseas logo, it falls within the definition of international transaction. And we have all the right in the world to do an AMP adjustment. This is the trigger. Now this was not there earlier, but with all these controversies coming up and the taxpayers saying that you don't have the power under the TP regulations to look at AMP adjustment, they have made this amendment. We are all familiar with retrospective amendments. This is also a retrospective amendment. This has been done with effect from 1st April 2002. So all of you know what this retrospective is. Also, they have not stopped here. They have gone a step ahead and they have said that international transactions also mean provision of services including market development and marketing management. So they have tried to cover this concept of AMP and the AMP adjustment by two places. One, by expanding the definition of Section 92B, international transaction, also by saying that what does international transaction specifically mean. So at two places they have the power now to do this. So, but if you really step back and think that is it really a service which the Indian company is providing to the parent? Is it happening?
It is reverse way also. Because if somebody has built up a brand and now you are using it in India, so you have to pay for that brand to your foreign company.
That's one way. That's one way to look at it. The way these guys are looking at it is, let's say assume that there is an LG brand, which is a global brand, well-known brand, but not known in India. You are the one who are actually developing that brand in India. That is what the tax authorities are saying. So now let's get into details of why and what are the thoughts. But I have a different thought process in this. If you say that there is a service which is provided by A to B, irrespective, I'm not getting into A and B or anything, but generally think about a thumb rule. When will you say that it's a chargeable service? It's a chargeable service when, let's say I'm providing services to, let's say, him. He should require that service. He should ask for that service. If I voluntarily provide this service to him, it cannot be said that it's a chargeable service. So it's the same thing. Under AMP, LG Korea never said that LG India should do this AMP, promote my brand in India. That was never said. LG was doing it on its own so that it can sell its products. But tax authorities are tax authorities. So, that's one of the principles. On AMP, I have some more thoughts, but any particular thought which is striking you guys when you think about this AMP and why AMP should not be used as a benchmark? We spoke about what an AMP is. Any thoughts that you guys have?
What is AMP?
It's advertisement and marketing and promotion expenditure. Please ask. I use these technical jargons. Please ask. Promotion. So think about the way adjustment is being happening in India right now. What is happening is AMP is used as a yardstick to do this adjustment. But is it fair? Is it fair? The comparison is being done like this, that let's say a company A, its AMP ratio is taken and that is compared with the comparables. Just the mathematical number is being compared. So let's say my AMP ratio, bright line of the AMP ratio, that is coming to 5%. The comparables are coming at 3%. Is it right to compare 3 against 5 without doing a qualitative analysis? Answer is no. Answer is clearly no. Because what is that composition? You have to understand what is the composition of AMP. I might write discounts which are given to my distributor as a AMP expenditure in my P&L. Because if you look at the P&L, there is no guidance on P&L under, as to the heads under which you can classify a particular income. So if I classify my discount which is given to a retailer as an AMP, but the comparables might not be doing, my AMP will be higher. Just because my AMP is higher, can I say that there is a marketing intangible that I am creating? And is there an intangible in the first place? What is an intangible in the first place? So this is one of the biggest fallacy of applying this bright line. And the tax authorities need to take cognizance of this, because just comparing mathematical number and just looking at 3 versus 5 will not give you the right result. The second thing is, does it really necessarily create intangibles? As I was saying, what is an intangible? What do you understand from intangible? It's a common term.
Getting a value.
Intangible is something which should give me a profit which is over and above the normal return. So just because I am incurring an extra 2%, is that 2% giving me an extra benefit? What is that intangible that I have created? So today, if I have to give an analogy, and I was looking at this model, Bisleri is an intangible. Because when you normally go to a vendor, you never say, give me a mineral water. Generally you say, give me a Bisleri, generally. If you, in US, if you go, they never say, I'll courier your document. They'll say, I'll FedEx a document. So FedEx is an intangible. Brand FedEx is an intangible. But how many mineral waters have you seen having the same type of an intangible? How many mineral waters? I cannot name more than 2 or 3. But there are many more in the market. So the point has to be understood is that every AMP or an excess AMP is not going to create an intangible. So this exercise, by mathematically looking or doing a comparison of 5 versus 3 or 3 versus 5, is a futile exercise. It's a starting point, I would say, but it is not a conclusive, or it is not the end. It's just a starting point. Starting point to say that whether any intangible is getting created. There has to be more probing done into this before you can start making an AMP type of an adjustment.
Even AMP for different level of products, in the sense, are you at year 1 or year 5 would
Correct.
also be different.
Correct, that's a very good point. So that's a great point. So let's say I am in year 1 of my business. I have to do a marketing spend. My sales will be less, so my AMP ratio will be on the higher side. That does not mean, if I compare it with the others who are established in the market, it's a wrong comparison to make. So my just one simple point that I'm trying to bring across from all this discussion is that this AMP is becoming a mathematical exercise, and that's not how it should be looked at. Always a qualitative analysis has to be done. This quantitative analysis will give a wrong result. So if you really want to understand, there has to be a qualitative analysis which has to be done. We'll get into this comparables at a later stage. That again, I think he made a right point. That when you are looking at these comparables, in my example 3:5, that 5, for determining that percentage 5, which type of comparables are you selecting? What is the age of those comparables? How many years they have been in the business? How many years we have been in the business? That comparison has to be done. So while I understand that given the limitations in the database and also the limitation of the analysis, it cannot be a perfect analogy you can do, but do an analysis to the extent as far as possible if you really want to understand that how this AMP is going to work. Let's get to the case of LG. So what happened in the case of LG? So LG, a Korean company, it had a brand in India. It had a subsidiary in India, and the subsidiary was a licensed manufacturer. And what license this guy was doing, if you look at this AMP spend, it was coming to some 3.85%. So the TPO did a search of comparables, and he said that the AMP spend of those comparables was around 1.39. So he said that this additional difference between 3.85 and 1.39 is an expenditure or an AMP spend which the company is doing for its parent. It's actually doing a brand building of LG Korea, not LG India. And that's why this excess expenditure should have been reimbursed by LG Korea. And top of it, since the service is being provided, the markup should have been provided. So he added a 13% on this adjustment on the differential between 3.85 and 1.39, and he made an adjustment. So this LG ruling actually traveled to ITAT, and ITAT said since this is a larger issue which many of the taxpayers in India are facing, will constitute a special bench for this. And the special bench heard this ruling. Unfortunately, I would say, and with due respects to the tribunal, the verdict which has come out is not the best of the verdicts. There are some positives and negatives, but more negative than positive. And what they have said is that in this process, if an excess AMP is being incurred by an Indian company, it is going to build the brand of the foreign parent company. And if it is building a foreign brand, then Indian entity ought to have got a reimbursement, and it ought to have got a markup on that amount. Well, so what happened was there were 3 members on the bench. Out of 3, 2 have given this verdict. 1 has dissented against. But since it was a majority, this is the view which is prevailing right now, which all the TPOs are using. So some very key observations of tribunal which they have given in this cases, and which is some of them are a bit funny. They have said that there is a difference between brand building, promoting a brand, and promoting a product. I fail to understand. I sometimes fail to understand how is this possible. Why will someone promote his brand if he is not intending to promote his products? It's like Samsung. Samsung will never say, I am Samsung. But I'm Samsung for doing what? I'm selling electronic products. So this classification of, or the hypothetical classification of trying to build a brand as against building a product, it's a very a blurred discussion which Tribunal Act is trying to do. And they have said that if the Indian entity is trying to develop product as against brand, then it is fine. Then you are trying to sell your own products. But if you are doing a brand building, then you are building the brand of the foreign company and you should get reimbursed. And how is that classification being brought out? The classification is being brought out by again using this AMP ratio. So, in the first place, this analogy itself seems to be a flawed analogy to me, with due respect to the tribunal. On top of it, the way it has been approached is in a mathematical way, using that comparison of 3.85 versus 1.39. So this is how they have tried to do. I fail to understand how this is possible. Unless you guys have some different thoughts.
Yeah, I can see the distance. See, product development means that you talk about the characteristics of product. A new product has come, talk about product, what has salient features which attract the market. Rather than this Samsung. The notebook today are much more refined. A lot of data given on there. That is the highlight. That in our advertisement, Samsung name is there, but we talk about the product only. The product is more exciting.
See, it's a valid point, but see, you will never say only a notebook, or you will not say an iPhone, or you will not say a Note 5. Below that Note 5, you will write a Samsung. So today, a customer is knowing that if you are promoting Note 2, it's a Samsung product. They promote it as Samsung Note 2, not just as Note 2. That is the distinguishing factors. So the point is, this product, so let's take this Bisleri. You never promote it as a mineral water. You promote it as a mineral water by Bisleri. Or you never promote just like saying only Bisleri. You know, if there is a hoarding which says Bisleri, what Bisleri has in its store? Bisleri is for mineral water. Samsung is for electronic products. So that distinguishing factor between just promoting the product and the brand name is actually a blurred distinction. And obviously, if you look at it from a different perspective, an Indian guy will not like to solely say, I am LG. Okay, good. What are you? What are you trying to sell? I have to say something. I have to say LG, leading leading product manufacturer, leading electronic manufacturer. Something of that sort has to be brought out. So this distinguishing thing between only a brand versus only a product, to my mind, is a blurred distinction.
The products like Philips, Bata, and BSF,
Yeah.
these are the products, the top brand, but the products are different. Products are different one product.
Correct. So if you see, Philips ad, the Philips ad which is being screened, it says Philips LED. That's how it comes out. It never comes like LED. Because you will never go to a shop and say, give me an LED. You like to say, okay, I need Philips LED because that's the trust that I have in that brand. So just promoting a brand or just promoting a product without a brand is not possible. Brand without a product is also not possible because you don't know what you are promoting. It's the classic case that I promote LG. I don't know what LG is into. What is the use? What is the use of need for having that advertisement? So that's why I'm saying that both go hand in hand. Both cannot go separate. So that's where I was making that point. The second point which Tribunal has tried to, the second thought that which Tribunal has tried to do is try to bring a distinguishing factor between economic versus legal ownership. So what the taxpayer argued, that look, what is happening is, I have incurred expenditure to promote this brand in India. All this thought of how to advertise my product, how to promote my product is done by me. The key people who were trying to develop this brand were all sitting in India. So all strategies were being made out of India. So if that is so, I am actually the economic owner of this brand, of this marketing intangible, if any, created in India. It's not the other person. Tribunal very interestingly said that there is no difference between an economic and a legal owner. Both are same. There is no difference. Okay. I would like to refer to a ruling of AAR in case of Foster's. It's all there in those slides. You can read it at your leisure. Foster's ruling, Foster had sold its business globally to Sam Miller, Foster's Australia. So when it was selling those products, the Indian AAR said that if I look at this brand building which has been done by Foster's India, Foster's India is the economic owner of this marketing intangible which has got created. So some value of that consideration which is being transacted between Sam Miller and Foster's should be attributed to India. So at that very point of time, the AAR in India said that there is a difference between economic and a legal owner, and economic owner should be rewarded. But when it comes to marketing intangible, the tribunal has said there is nothing like a concept of economic owner. Surprising to me. Surprising to me. Because if you also see the commercial, I'm not talking about the commercial arrangements. If whenever you look at a licensed manufacturer agreement, it always says, or 99.99% of the times it says, that in case there is a global sale which is going to happen by the parent, or there is a termination of rights, the Indian entity will be compensated adequately for this intangible if it has created any. Because there is a big intangible, the marketing intangible is a big intangible. You are known in the market because of the expenditure that you have done. You are the economic owner, so I compensate you adequately for that. Agreements also say this, but the tribunal in its wisdom says that there is no difference between economic owner and a legal owner. That's where it stands. And that is what even the tax authorities have been taking a view on. That there is no difference. If you are just doing an excess AMP, I'll make an adjustment.
So what was the clause of the termination of license? It was a very valid clause, and in practice it is found very effective.
Yeah.
I know case of Winner Digest.
Yeah.
When they became independent, they had to pay big money.
They don't take cognizance of that. Unfortunately. Unfortunately.
Was it argued or not yet?
It was argued. It was argued. That is where this point came up. So the entire thing.
Was there cases available on that?
Foster's was a landmark thing which was available. And Foster's was argued in case of LG. But I think the bench did not take it. The dissenting member had taken a view that yes, economic owner and legal owners are different. But since it was a majority which prevailed, that's why we have this. One good part, and probably one of the only good parts of this judgment, is that tribunal somewhere in its wisdom said that higher AMP per se cannot justify an AMP adjustment. There has to be something more which has to be done. Now what is that more? Not spelled out. So it just gave a view and it just stopped over there. They also upheld the fact that bright line is a method, because what was happening was the representative, the company, it argued that just as I am arguing right now, it also argued that you cannot take this AMP just as as a tool to necessarily determine what is that differential value. But what you have to do is you need to apply more qualitative analysis before you can do this AMP adjustment. But unfortunately, tribunal said that use of bright line is a valid thing, is a good tool to find out what is the non-routine expenditure which is being done, and you can do an adjustment based on that. Unfortunate, but that's how it is. Another interesting point which was argued by LG was that it said that look, you are saying that I should have been compensated. Fair enough. Fair enough. Difference between that 3.85 and 1.39, adjustment should have been given. I should have been compensated. But how should I be compensated? Is it necessary that a number should be given to me? Let's say the differential is 2%. Is it necessary that the 2% plus the 13% markup should come to me as one invoice? Or I can get overcompensated in my transfer pricing itself, which is reflected in the higher margins that I am earning. Because if you look at the margin of LG vis-a-vis comparables at a net level, LG was making, let's say, maybe 30%. The comparables were making 20%. So there is a 10% additional number which is